Harry Potter behind the Quidditch scenes. No Harry Potter movie is complete without a good flying scene, and most of those happen on broomsticks. To this day, there are still plenty of people that don't know what Quidditch is all about, since they either didn't get into Harry Potter movies or they just didn't pay that close attention. Quidditch is kind of like soccer with the physicality of rugby, but also with at least minimal padding, just enough to avoid being seriously beaten by the opposing team, but not enough to weigh down the broom each rider uses. What's really amusing to think about is that J.K. Rowling described the game well enough to get people excited, but left a lot of room for imagination when it came to interpreting it into the movie. Hearing that the representation given by the directors was how she envisioned the game is great to hear, but going into how the magic happened behind the scenes is extremely interesting, since learning that the actors really had no idea where to look or how to react until they were given their cues makes it easy to think that they were all just along for the ride for the most part, and that ride couldn't have been easy even with a bike seat on the broom, since sitting up there in such a position does look as though it would be insanely uncomfortable after a while. The Quidditch matches were pretty much a solid fixture in the movies up until the Deathly Hallows, when the school was disrupted in a way that made it obvious that things wouldn't be the same any longer. Plus, there was no official match in the Goblet of Fire since the Triwizard Tournament was being held. There was technically a match between the two top-ranked teams, but it was an entirely different level, and the audience didn't get to see anything other than the entrance of both teams. Apart from that, Quidditch was featured from the start as a lively and very addictive game, obviously since it's made its way into pop culture since either by reference or by actual representation. The point, however, is that a creation that came from another creation was picked up in a way that has become something both interesting and widespread. For a while now, the sport has actually gained some traction with people and has become a part of pop culture that has helped to shape the world that's embraced it. It is worth noting that for boys and the girls, sitting on the broomstick had to be painful after a while, but it is kind of intriguing to think if they were specialized seats created for young men and women once they progressed to a certain age. There's nothing lewd about it from a realistic standpoint, since it's a matter of biological fact that men do have a part of their body that might be affected by sitting atop a broomstick for very long. Women would no doubt find it rather uncomfortable as well, which means that the seats did have to adapt and the apparatus that was being used had to adapt as well over the years. Just thinking how painful it could be to sit up there for 30 minutes or so, or even more. To shoot the scenes for Quidditch, a sport where people fly across the broomsticks and try to score goals against the opposing team by throwing, catching, or blocking various types of balls, the production team for the Harry Potter movies had a few tricks up their sleeve. The filming methods were different depending on the scene. One of them involves jumping up and down on a trampoline in front of a green screen. Quidditch is essentially created for the computer. All the actors were filmed separately on their brooms, which are held and moved by a rig. They act and react while a motion control camera films the performance in front of the blue or green screen. The colored background is later eliminated when the actors are incorporated into the complete CGI environment by the visual effect department. With little to interact with but the blue and green screens, filming Quidditch scenes was one of the most grueling experiences for the actors, says Chris Columbus, director of the first two Harry Potter films. Riding those brooms was a tremendously difficult thing, but to create a sense of movement, a sense of urgency, and at the same time to feel as if they were real athletes playing a game was the biggest challenge. It's really complicated. Every actor is filmed separately, so even if they appear to be talking to each other in the scene, they're probably not in real life. A computer program determines where the broom rig moves, so even though it looks like the actors are steering it, they're actually just trying to hold on. The actors are up there for hours and the brooms, as you can imagine, gets uncomfortable. And because of the shots are made to look like they're thousands of feet in the air, the lighting gets complicated. Everyone is shot at multiple angles for the scenes, so when they're stitched together, they need to be controlled for various lighting angles that work for each person in the frame. Plus, the special effects artist needs to create a digital environment and atmosphere that all looks cohesive. Green screen special effects methods can be fun. Take this scene for example, where Hermione holds up the books of the Hogwarts library bookshelves and they float about into place. In reality, there were people on the other side of the shelves wearing green gloves. To make sure the story of each Quidditch scene is clear and that the necessary excitement will be built when all the pieces are assembled, every move in a Quidditch match is carefully plotted in a series of detailed storyboard sketches well before filming begins. The movements between these key shots are then worked out on computers using simple animations known as pre-visualization or previs. This process gives the filmmakers a good sense of how many different elements they will have to combine in a final shot, and creates a preliminary shooting list for each individual player's moves, which are subsequently filmed one by one. In an incredibly time-consuming process, a shot that features 10 players, for instance, might involve a week's filming before the visual effects teams can even think about starting work. On screen, that shot might just last 2 seconds. Technological advances during the making of the series have made it possible for Quidditch to be filmed in an increasingly exciting way. Inside a computer, we do just about anything, says visual effects supervisor Tim Burke. Players' cloaks can be made to flap and whip around, and moves in the game that would be impossible for an actor to perform can now be made by a digitally animated version of the actor. For being a game that was thought up by an author as part of the story, a plot device in a way, Quidditch has been widely embraced by those that found it to be a great deal of fun and entirely possible to play without being able to emulate it entirely. That's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe button to get notifications when we release new videos.